Hi, I'm Dave Hobbs, a Senior Tech Trainer for Delphi, a division of PHINIA. The beginning of my career, I really can't put a date or a particular incident that got me involved and really interested in working on vehicles, because I literally grew up in a family auto electric business. And even at preschool age, this is where I hung out after school, was at Mom and Dad's Hobbs Auto Electric, auto repair shop. And so Creeper was a fun tool, like a skateboard, and it was also a place to take a nap right after kindergarten and things like that, and just grew up sweeping the floor at first, and using tools as toys. A ratchet with a spark plug socket and extension was like a gun with a silencer. And so, when you're little and you hang out in an auto repair shop after school, before school, you name it, you just have to improvise. It was back before cell phones and electronic devices, and with whatever you got around you to play with. And at some point in time, I go, you know what? These tools have purposes. Dad, show me how to use them. And so I just kind of grew up in it naturally, an involvement, and can't really put a finger on when which car or what incidents or which customer got me really wanting to be doing this professionally, because I've just always done it. For me, transitioning as a technician to a trainer actually was kind of a two-step process. I had a trainer. His name was Gib Hunter, and he was an inspiration to both myself and my dad. He was an instructor at the GM Training Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, for the AC Delco classes, and being an independent shop, that's where we went for our training. And I just thought he knew everything, and I was just so cool that he was so gifted and sharp and a great communicator. Found out later he wasn't even a technician by background. He was an English teacher in a high school, but he was just very good at communicating and learning General Motors methods for working on vehicles through AC Delco. And so that was kind of a key person to me as a mentor or as an example to get into training. But at some point in time, I left the family shop. I thought it was going to be initially just maybe a few years to absorb a lot of information, work in the hotline at a place called Delco Electronics division of General Motors, which later became Delphi over the years. And I thought, I'll just stay there a while, work on the hotline, I'll learn a bunch, and I'll go back and I'll buy my dad's shop and live happily ever after. And I got hooked on the high tech that Delco Electronics was leader in with technology. And then from the hotline to training engineers actually on how vehicle systems work. It was amazing how humble and neat they were of practical information about how an EGR valve works. Remember, one engineer said, Dave, I did the software coding for EGR in ECMs for years. I finally know what the EGR does on the vehicle. And I go, that's kind of important if you're writing the software for it. So from that teaching job, when they ended the tech line support and so forth at Delco Electronics, and it became Delphi, then they found out, oh, we have a trainer. Let's put him to work on the aftermarket. And I've been in the aftermarket ever since. It's been probably 3 decades. And I love every bit of it because that's where I'm from and that's who's in my classes. Cars change so fast today that along with the technology and what affects technicians, I compare it to the old folklore story I learned probably in grade school. It's an old story from, I think, 1700s in the United States called Rip Van Winkle. So it's the story of that guy that takes a nap and wakes up as 20 years later and the American Revolution's already taken place. That's what's going on today in about a year. If you don't go and take training, and that goes double for instructors like myself, if we don't continually take training in any way, shape, or form we can get it, whether it be on the web, live, hands-on is always best. I know that's how I learn the best, and that's how I think it gets through to my students the best. But if we're not continually training, we become Rip Van Winkle. We become like, well, when did they do that? Well, that was 20 years ago, bud. Where have you been? So that's why I continually train as an instructor and emphasize to my students always keep going. Don't stop where I left you off today with the class we ended with. Continue your learning on your own. Technician weak spots are prevalent. We all have our weak spots. For me, I'm not really into transmissions and mechanical engines. You know, as a kid that grew up in an auto electric shop, we specialized in anything electrical. So I know that I struggle with and kind of steer away from some mechanical things. So those are probably areas as a trainer I need to emphasize on. And the same thing is true for technicians. Especially if you're seeing comebacks. I noticed, I was talking to some of the people here at DeBoer that have talked to a lady named Tina in management, and she was able to come up with a number of how many flub ups where it cost the company some money. One of the technicians was concerned. They were self-conscious and very much wanting to do the right job. And she was able to pull that information out very quickly and go, well, you're not even in the top 4%. You know, as far as comebacks. But if you are in a top number, it's not a good place to be with comebacks, and you're having, you know, to do things over, and the company's having to, you know, buy parts and everything, then that's when you probably need to find out, okay, what subject is that? Is that electrical? Is that a hydraulic? Is it something to do with mechanical, or what's the weak area? It'll come to you when it comes to the bottom line, when it comes to dollars and cents. And that goes double for trainers. You know, if you question your ability to get the message across, or if you have a great ability to get the message across, that's probably the area you need to hone in on the least, and the ones where you feel you're getting your class lost before your eyes, those are the areas you need to focus on the most. Same thing in the Bay. Locating high value training can be difficult. I've had the discussion just today with the students here at DeBoer, and we all agreed that there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, a lot of stuff on the internet, but it's not all good. Some of it's hearsay, some of it's absolutely for consumers, some of it's just totally full of crap. And so look for people who give you referrals, and I'm stuck on 2 or 3 people I like. I like Paul Danner, Scanner Danner. And I like Sherwood at Royalty Auto Service, his repair shop owner down in the south part of Georgia. And I find them, they connect to me verbally. I understand where they're going. And I know as a professional that they're speaking the truth. It's from experience. And I get a subscription, I click like, I watch their program. It pops up on my Facebook channel or YouTube feeds all the time. And I just stick with what I know that works. But it is basically a jungle out there on the internet. But those are places, besides premium training providers, you know, like Delphi and other manufacturers of auto parts, and certainly some of the independent training companies, you know, like Diagnostic Nation. I'll give them a shout out. I'm a big fan of those guys. WorldPack, you know, they're a big customer, as is AutoZone of Delphi, and we try to provide great training for them, and they have other instructors that train for them as well. So look for where other technicians are saying, I got a lot of information, and it was basically like I use it the next day to move that needle of practicality and money making. Because, you know, at the end of the day, if you're not making money because you're not being productive, that's demoralizing. And one of my big things in the last few years of my career has been not only to focus on getting the information out to techs, but also keeping them encouraged so they don't get to a place like one of my old friends that used to be a GM field engineer said when he took me to lunch. He's getting ready to retire, and he said, Davey, I have to tell you, I'm retiring next month because I've grown to hate cars and the people who drive them. So if you get to that burnout stage, it's probably time to find some training solutions that keep you not only informed about new systems before they become old systems and you become old news, but also keep you encouraged in the business by making things fun and lively in the classroom or online. You know, when it comes to keeping teams of technicians at one shop or multiple shops engaged and get that aha moment where they go, I get it. You can almost hear the relay click in their heads that turns that light bulb on of understanding is hands-on. I will say that, no pun intended, hands down. Hands-on training gives that aha moment. And right here at this location in the classroom at DeBoer in Hamburg, New Jersey, I've had quite a few of those aha moments where I've made that point, but they've seen it with a meter, they've seen it with a scope, either in the classroom or on the vehicle in the bay. And that's where it clicks. Because otherwise, I found myself as an instructor feeling like I'm Charlie Brown's teacher from the old Charlie Brown's cartoon, you know, wah, 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 wah. And it's like, I know I'm not saying those words. I think I'm making sense, but you look at the crowd and they're like, you can tell the light bulb isn't on, the relay hadn't even clicked. They've not got that comprehension because you haven't hit that sweet spot where they've seen it and did it themselves and went, oh. Another thing is analogies, comparing something that's new and bizarre and foreign to them to something that they're used to. So I like with scope training, like we're doing here with the CAN bus class this week, and I did with the scope introduction to scopes last year. I like to say, okay, who's more comfortable with their meter compared to the scope? Every hand goes up because most techs love the meter. That's their main go-to electrical diagnostic tool besides the scan tool. Then I say, okay, well, let's connect a meter, see what it shows, and let's hook a scope up in its place and see how they parallel, or maybe one excels over the other in different applications. Then you get those aha moments where you know that light bulb turned on because they get it. And that is adrenaline rush. I think both to the student and definitely I can speak as a trainer, it's my adrenaline rush. It's what fills my gas tank. You know, speaking about CAN buses, controller area network, it seems so kind of a lofty topic. And as I've described some of the, you know, the origins of it, history, and you know, the different types of CAN buses, you know, you could just smell this is one of those high-tech nerd type topics. But in reality, it's basically like a party line for modules to talk on. Now, if you're not an older person like myself or remembers party lines, you've always grew up with phones where you picked it up and it was only your family on it, or maybe even cell phones, you don't remember landlines. That can be difficult making that analogy. But it could be like the little walkie-talkie radios like a lot of shops use to talk back and forth between two locations. We all use cell phones and instant messages with our laptops and text messages. That's basically the CAN bus, is where modules can text or give instant messages or talk to each other real time in order to communicate information about what the vehicle's doing. And that can also be leveraged by technicians to find out what's wrong with the vehicle without really sometimes even leaving the driver's seat. You can learn a lot of information not only with that scan tool, but with a scope and a meter and a breakout box at that diagnostic connector.
Very good. And then the last question is, if our technicians only take one piece of advice away from our training sessions today to improve their diagnostics, what should it be?
One point I want to make anytime I come to this training center here in Jersey is that the one thing that I want techs to take away is the fact that their learning is never over and they need to be curious. And so whether it's to get a certain tool out that they don't use very often on their own time, maybe on their own vehicle just to play with it, if you lose your curiosity, you lose that passion for what got you into the business to start with, you're going to get basically behind and be more behind and more behind. So keep the curiosity going and get those tools out that you're uncomfortable with and play with them. I know you may not get paid for it all the time unless you get, straight diagnostic hours or whatever, and then it can be frustrating. So when you're not under the rush of the clock, get those high-tech tools out, get better at them, because in the end, it'll make you a winner.